that, you know, it's not only important here in Middlesex County, not only important in New Jersey, but is becoming a topic of extraordinary conversation around our entire country. And that is reforming our broken K-12 education system in America. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed now. And New Jersey is going to be on the cutting edge of that change. You know, there's been a great discussion starting really at the end of last week regarding education reform. And, you know, some of it started quite some time ago here in New Jersey with the release of the documentary The Cartel. And it raised issues of extraordinary importance that were particular to New Jersey. And for any of you who have not seen that movie, you should see it because it's extraordinarily important and tells a story about what's going on in the education system in New Jersey that needs to be told. And on Saturday, I was in Newark, New Jersey with the mayor of Newark, Cory Booker, and Mark Zuckerberg, the founder and CEO of Facebook, and with the director and the stars of the new movie Waiting for Superman. Now, that's a movie that you have to see as well. And it comes out in broader release this Friday. And you need to go see it, and you need to bring your family to go and see it, because it tells an extraordinary story of the obscenity of the cost and the failure of public education in America right now. And there's no other way to conclude when you see that movie than that we are giving away a generation of young Americans and their education because we have allowed special interests in this country to take over the education system and to make it all about them and not about our country and improving our educational system. So, sitting with Jeffrey Canada, the head of the Harlem Children's Zone, sitting with all the folks from Mayor Booker's staff who are working on this, with Michelle Hendricks, our acting commissioner of education here in New Jersey. Sitting with those folks on Saturday and watching that movie, I will defy you when you see that movie not to be extraordinarily moved. It tells the story not only of Jeffrey Canada and his work in Harlem, which has been groundbreaking and extraordinary. It also tells the story of Michelle Reed, the chancellor of the DC Public Schools, and her battle in Washington, D.C. to improve what was, before her arrival, the worst public school district in America, right in our nation's capital. But it also tells the story of 5 children and their families in Los Angeles, in Houston, in Washington, D.C., and 2 of them in New York City. And these children struggle and their families struggle to make sure that they have an education which gives them an opportunity for a hopeful tomorrow. In the end, understand what all this is about. I've been talking since I started running for governor, February of 2009, about certain core issues, but the one that touches me the deepest is this one, because we have an education system in New Jersey that has good parts to it. And there are some children in our state who are getting an education that's preparing them to succeed in the world tomorrow. But there are many in New Jersey who are not. In the city of Newark, where we spend $24,000 per pupil per year, and we have 1 out of 2 children not graduating from high school. 1 out of every 2 children in Newark do not graduate from high school. Think about that. It's extraordinary. And of the ones who do graduate, if they go to Essex County College, 95% of those kids need remedial training in math and English to to get to the level that they were supposed to have attained by getting that diploma. Because those who have artificially rigged those results have artificially rigged those graduation tests to get a higher result than what really is deserved. Why? To make themselves look better, to keep their jobs when they're failing, and not to give a damn about the fact that those kids are walking out those doors with diplomas that don't mean what they say. That is obscene in New Jersey, and we're not going to let it go on any longer. And it's not just Newark. It's Patterson, Jersey City. It's Camden and Pleasantville. It's Asbury Park. And it's not about money. And one of the things that I want to make sure you understand today, in the context of everything that's happened in the last week, there's been a great deal of publicity about Mark Zuckerberg and the fact that Mark has put forward a $100 million challenge grant to the city of Newark to help bring about school reform in Newark and to try to turn around that 1 out of 2 children not graduating from high school in Newark. It's a wonderful thing. And at 26 years old, he's an extraordinary young man. To care at 26 years old, despite his wealth, which is extraordinary. But despite his wealth, at 26 years old, to have the maturity and the vision to want to give back at that age, in that amount, probably makes his parents extraordinarily proud. They know not only did they make and create a successful young man by material standards, they've also created a really good young man who wants to do this for the city of Newark and to use the city of Newark as a model for the rest of the country on how to turn around urban education to set up a model that can be replicated across New Jersey and across the country. And it's wonderful. And Mayor Booker and I have already raised an additional $40 million from private philanthropic sources. So 40% of Mark's grant is matched, and we met with a number of leaders in the philanthropic community in the Northeast yesterday in New York City to try to make sure we meet the next $60 million of that grant. But just put it in perspective, that's $200 million, and it is a hell of a lot of money. This past year, you, the taxpayers of the state of New Jersey, sent the school district in the city of Newark over $900 million just last year. Just last year. So I'm thrilled about Mark Zuckerberg's challenge grant, and I'm thrilled with the flexibility it will give us, the no strings attached ability it will give us to be able to make change in the city of Newark. And we're going to pick a great superintendent for that school district that will bring change and leadership to it. And I'll work in partnership with Mayor Booker and the leaders of their advisory board in Newark and with Rochelle Hendricks to make that change happen. But it is a fraction of the money that you already spent. So while it's a wonderful thing, let's not get ourselves missing the forest for the trees, because New Jersey spent $25 billion on K-12 education last year. You had all the money up from property taxes and state revenues, all revenues that went to education, $25 billion last year. In 2007, 2008, the average statewide per pupil spending was $17,620 per pupil, the highest in America in 2007, 2008. And so, don't let anybody tell you that in New Jersey, money is the issue for failure to achieve what we need to achieve. Money's the issue, but it's not connected to failure to achieve. Money's the issue because it's bankrupting our state. And New Jerseyans are extraordinarily generous people when it comes to our educational system, and they've given and given and given and approved school budget after school budget after school budget at higher and higher and higher property taxes, to the point where we're now the highest property tax paying state in America. And you know that a large percentage, in some towns anywhere from 60 to 75% of your property tax bill goes to your various school boards. Your K-8 school board, your high school board, your regional school board. You see it, you see the breakdown yourself when your property tax bill comes in. So New Jerseyans are incredibly generous. That's not what this is about. I know that you would be willing to continue to invest in a public education system that will prepare your children and your neighbors' children to lead America and lead the world in thought and invention, but that's not what you're getting. What you're getting now is a system that does not lead, and in fact, fails many children and their parents, and leaves them with no choice but failure. When thousands of children are on waiting lists for charter schools in Newark, and those families don't have the money to make another choice, we're failing our children and their families. And you'd say to yourself, how can you fail them when you're paying $24,000 per pupil? Go to some of those schools in the city of Newark. You go and sit in there and look at what's happening and see if you think that you could possibly learn with that leadership or lack of leadership. In the end, it's our fault, because we have been unwilling to stand up to the special interests who protect the status quo. We have been unwilling to speak what we know is the truth, because those in political office have feared for their political lives if they open their mouths and say it. We saw it again 2 weeks ago. Mayor Fenty of the District of Columbia was defeated in a primary because of the reforms that Michelle Reed forced in the DC public school system, and because the teachers union, the ATF, spent $1 million in that campaign to defeat Mayor Fenty. And when Randy Weingarten, the president of the ATF, was asked, why $1 million in DC if it wasn't because you opposed school reform? You can't imagine this happening anywhere but here in this time, that someone could look in the camera. She looked in the camera and said, well, you know, there's a lot of issues that our members care about in the District of Columbia, and we spent $1 million because of all those issues. Yeah, I'm sure that the ATF spent $1 million there because they're concerned about garbage collection in the district. They're concerned about snow removal on the streets. I'm sure they're worried about all that. You know why. Because Michelle Reed had become, and Mayor Fenty had become, symbols of standing up to the teachers' unions across America and demanding more for the children of DC. They went after them for that reason, and they went after them because they were producing results, God forbid. They were showing that the changes they were making, demanding accountability, getting rid of bad teachers and bad principals, and wanting to pay good teachers and good principals even more than they would be paying now, wanting to reward people based upon their performance,